Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Deck Tech. So today we're talking about Kozilek, and this is going to be an EDH deck, so the station combos are going to be great for this deck. It is one of the ways that we can combo off no matter what order we start in. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about it. So the first things that we need to know about this is which station we're going to begin the combo with, okay? So for ease's sake, we're going to start with Summoning Station because we can miss the triggers everywhere else and it'll be okay. So yeah, so Summoning Station is going to put a 2/2 colorless pincher creature token into play. Okay, we're going to do that and we are going to get a pincher. Okay, so that's a trigger. Tapping it costs nothing, so that's how we begin. So there are no triggers here anymore. We're going to use dice for trigger on each one of them. Okay, so we have our pincher token. Okay, now it says whenever a creature comes into play, you may untap Blasting Station. Okay, so this just came in. ETB triggers this one. Okay, so now there is a trigger on Blasting Station. So it comes into play and you may untap Blasting Station whenever this comes into play. So on the trigger, we are going to respond by tapping it to sacrifice a creature. Okay. When we sacrifice that creature, it says Blasting Station deals 1 damage to target creature or player. Okay, so we're gonna sacrifice a creature, and once we do sacrifice a creature, then we can tap it. But untap it, I mean. But because we sacrifice a creature, Salvaging Station is going to trigger because it says whenever a creature is put into a graveyard for play, you may untap Salvaging Station. So here we have Salvaging Station wanting to be untapped. So now we have a trigger there. So we are going to return target non-creature artifact card with converted mana cost 1 or less from the graveyard into play. Do we have that? We do not. We don't have necessarily that. We could bring one, it doesn't matter. So I don't know what we're gonna bring, but it has to be cost 1 or less. So for us to do that, let's instead sacrifice an artifact so that we can fulfill that condition. Okay, so let's sacrifice something like Soul Ring. Okay, so we had Soul Ring, we sacrifice it, oh, it's gone, right? So we sacrifice it, and the problem is this says sacrifice an artifact to do blah blah blah. But whenever an artifact is put into a graveyard, we sacrificed it, this will untap. So then this gets another trigger. So they are right now all triggered, none of them are resolved. So now we're gonna resolve it backwards in counterclockwise. So because the artifact went into the graveyard, this untaps. Now we get rid of the trigger. We actually have 2 triggers here, by the way. Then once we have sacrificed this trigger is going to, we have 2 triggers here too. This creature artifact, that this sacrifice that we made, target player is going to put the top 3 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. So we have milled 3. So once we have milled 3, then this can untap. And then Salvaging Station is going to be able to return target non-creature in response to this or whatever. Return target non-creature artifact card with converted mana cost 1 or less from the graveyard into play. Now we tap it. Second trigger. The tap is already done, so we go back to 1 trigger, and then this untaps. Once this untaps, the trigger has resolved. This comes into play, and hey, an artifact just came into play. So that means this one gets untapped. Okay. So because this one got untapped, we can sacrifice an artifact and then do it all over again. So this is going down. Now this is getting a second trigger. The other triggers, we can let it resolve. So if this one resolves, this one is untapped, and then this untaps, and then this untaps. And so at the end of the day, what you are going to get is we deal 1 damage and we milled 3 cards. Regardless of whether we had an artifact or not, regardless of whether we had a pincher or not, the reason why we do this is for 2 things. We can make infinite damage, we can mill infinite times, and we can have infinite ETBs, as well as we can have infinite mana. So we had 2 mana because this taps, and we had 3 mills because this tapped, and we do 1 damage because this tapped. So every single time we do this, it's going to reloop all over again. Let's do it in another order, okay? Let's say we have a Soul Ring. We are going to sacrifice the artifact first. Okay, the artifact is gone, okay? So now, whenever this one is put into the graveyard, an artifact is put into the graveyard, untap Summoning Station, okay? Trigger. Because this has a trigger that's wanting to untap it, but it's not tapped, we're gonna tap it to do whatever it wants to do. That is gonna make a pincher token. A token comes into play. This is not untapped yet. Trigger on the stack, okay? And this also has a trigger on the stack. So then we have Blasting Station that says whenever a creature comes into play, the pincher just came in, untap Blasting Station, trigger on the stack. Now, so that we don't have to miss that trigger, we're gonna tap to sacrifice a creature. So we sacrifice this one. Now there's 2 triggers on the stack, and now Salvaging Station sees that a creature is put into a graveyard from play because of the token. So this is gonna have a trigger on the stack. Now if we have that, we can just tap it instead to return target non-creature artifact card with converted mana cost 1 or less from your graveyard to play. So we return this guy. Now this guy returns. This one, the trigger, there's 2 triggers here. This one returns. Now there's 2 triggers here because an artifact came into play, okay? So now, because this one comes into play, we untap it. Okay, so 1 trigger resolves. And then this one comes into play, so this trigger resolved. So now when this trigger resolves, this one's gonna resolve. And this one's gonna resolve. We're untapping. We have not yet done 1 damage. Now this trigger resolves. And then this one resolves to do 1 damage, and this one resolves to do 3 mils. Okay? And we have Soul Ring, which can tap for 2 more. So we net 2 mana. And no matter the order that we are doing this in, we are still gonna get that combination of 3 mils, 2 mana, 1 damage. 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1 the whole time, okay? Now, this is if you had all 4 stations. That means that you don't necessarily need all 4 stations. For example, if you have Mycosynth Lattice or Lattice, I don't know how you say it, all permanents are artifacts, which means that whenever you have a colorless pincher come in, that is also an artifact that comes in. So that creature comes into play, this untaps, but we can sacrifice that creature. So whenever we have that creature come in, we sacrifice it, and then an artifact, because of Mycosynth Lattice or Lattice, is put into a graveyard. So we untap it. So we tap it again. This comes in, so we untap it, and we tap it again. Comes in, comes out, comes in, comes out. And after everything resolves, we don't have to tap this. We let 1 trigger get missed, and you get a lot of damage put. So you keep sacrificing, untapping, sacrificing, untapping, and at the end of it all, when it resolves, you're gonna get a lot of damage, and you just off every single player, okay? That's how it works with Mycosynth Lattice. You just need these 3. Okay, that's high cost though, so let's check out the other side. You could also have Grinding Station and Salvaging Station do the same thing if you have a creature that comes into play, also be an artifact that comes into play. And because this one returns and this one sacrifices, that's all you need. Some card like Karn. Let's say Karn Silver Golem is going to have a creature that comes into play, be a non-creature artifact, become a creature artifact. So let's say we have that same Soul Ring, or maybe not Soul Ring, maybe, what should we get? Yeah, let's do it with Soul Ring, see if it works. So yep, let's return Soul Ring, comes in, whatever. So now this is tapped. Now Soul Ring has 2, we're going to tap for 2, and once we tap for 2, we have 2 here. We're going to tap Soul Ring. We're going to use Karn to make Soul Ring into an artifact creature. So we have 1 mana left. Okay, now we can sacrifice an artifact. Oh, an artifact came into play, so we can tap this one, sacrifice it. And then when an artifact comes into play, you may untap Grinding Station. And then it says sacrifice an artifact, target player puts the top 3 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. So we got 3 mil. Okay, so now this resolves, we mill, this resolves, we tap, and then we untap, I mean. And then once we got this, because we sacrificed an artifact, this says whenever a creature is put into a graveyard from play, remember that the Soul Ring was actually a creature as well. So then this has a trigger to untap. Okay, so now we can start all over again, and we already have 1 mana and 3 mills. So we can return this one. An artifact came into play, so this has a trigger. Before we trigger on response, we're going to sacrifice this one, and off the stack we're going to tap it for 2 more mana. So now we got 3. And now this gets sacrificed, something was sacrificed, this gets untapped. So then this comes in and says, hey, you're going to mill for 3, 4, 5, 6. And now this gets untapped. And in between you have to pay for card to make this into a creature as well. So then you go from 3 to 2. But now you went up 2 in mana, up 1 in mana, and 3 in mill. You keep doing that over and over and over again so that you keep making infinite mana and doing infinite mill. Then once you've milled everyone out, you deck them out, and then you pass the turn and they lose because they got 0, 0, 0, 0, and you win. That's how you win with these combos. There's other ways to do this. You don't need grinding station. If you got an altar, you can do either Ashnaughts or Card Clan Ironworks, or even Phyrexian Altar, because then you can sacrifice this artifact once you have it become a creature, and then this is going to be targeting with this one, or triggering with this one. Then you can return it with Salvaging Station. You can keep going this way, because this is going to be the sacrificing artifact one, so you don't really need to mill. You can make infinite mana this way. Okay, so that's how you get the stations combos. I hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, let me know what you guys think of it, and I hope that you have seen it played before. I personally like just throwing the 4 out there and just going clockwise and then resolving counterclockwise and say, hey, that's how I win. But yeah, there's tons of other combos. There's also like Clock of Omens. There's tons of things like that. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. And hey, it's the first time we use dice to get rid of a combo trigger stack. So that's interesting. But yeah, comment on that. Which station do you like the most? Okay, comment that, as well as like, share, subscribe, and follow for more. Okay, I'll see you on the next one. Ciao.